Greetings all, and welcome to Esoteric Babble. Today we're going to look at Genesis, the first chapter, specifically the first verse of the first chapter. And I am making the claim that the first verse here in Genesis is simply a heading. It's a bullet point. It's a description of the contents of this account of creation. And why would I make this claim? Well, we'll get into that right now. Now, for some people, there will be a sticking point here. There's a result of this. And I just have to say, I have no theological pony in the show, so to speak. So for me, there's no issue at all. I am certainly guided by my own outlook. I'm limited by my own outlook, but in as much as possible, I just want the text to kind of speak. We're looking at it here in Hebrew. We don't have to look at it in Hebrew. By the way, I am not a Hebrew scholar or a biblical scholar. My Hebrew is not great. People will tell you that. They will affirm that statement. But we can look at the Hebrew here, and you can follow along with your favorite translation to see if you can see if I'm getting this right. So let's just jump right in. I will say the name of this book in Hebrew, Bereshit, comes from the Hebrew, obviously. And not only that, it comes from the first word. So we're used to calling that book in English Genesis, which comes from the Septuagint, really, a Greek word, which is describing the contents of the book, like the creation, the coming into being of not only heaven and earth, but of the forefathers of the Jewish people, and an account of that coming into being. So, and I hope I didn't muddle that too much. So here we have it right here. This is the first verse. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashemayim ve'et haaretz. We'll just translate it as it's typically translated in English, maybe from the King James on. My second point, after I make the first point here, that I try to make my case that this is just a heading, I do want to circle back and talk a little bit about Bereshit. So Bereshit, in the beginning, bara Elohim. Elohim is God, plural, but with a singular subject. So it's God created. Et hashemayim. This is a direct object marker, so we see what he's creating. He created hashemayim, the heavens, which we might even just say the sky. Ve'et haaretz, and the land. Here we're saying in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, or the sky and the land. And then we go on in verse 2, V'ha'aretz hayata tohu vavohu, and we get a description of the land here. Now, I put this in green because I don't believe it's this ha'aretz here. And we'll come back to that. So normally we would say something like, now the land or the earth was like formless and void. This tohu vavohu is famously not attested a lot in the Hebrew Bible. So we'll just go with formless and void for now. That's not even part of this argument so much. But any description here of haaretz, I don't think that this is what is being talked about here. So why do I say that? So just to say one more time, because I like to repeat myself, this first verse, I think, is telling us it's a description of what's to follow. In other words, there's no content here. Nothing's been created yet. So the first, where we pick up the scene, where we pick up the action, so to speak, is here. Now the earth was formless and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. V'ruah Elohim merahefet al pnei hamayim. And the Spirit of God was hovering on the face of the waters. Excuse me. Now, we'll come back to this in a minute. And notice there's no mention of Shemayim here. But if we go down to verse 8, we'll see, and really you would have to go back to verse 6 here, and notice that God creates this rakia. We did a video on rakia where I claim it's not the clouds. I don't think many people think it's the clouds, but maybe there are some. Vayomer Elohim yihi rakia betoch hamayim vihi mavdil bein mayim lamayim. So God has set up this rakia, this firmament, this metal or some sort of structure that's keeping the waters. It's separated out the waters. So there's waters above it, and now there's waters below it. And if we just go down here, then we'll notice something interesting. Vayigra Elohim la rakia, and God called the rakia. He named the rakia Shamayim. He named the rakia the sky, or sky, heavens. So here's my question. If God created Shamayim back here, it seems like he's doing it again here. And that to me just doesn't make a lot of sense. This is a clear account right here of Shamayim coming into existence. And then later on, down here in verse 10, the waters that were underneath, we see that Vayomer Elohim yikavu, see, I mentioned that. Yikavu hamayim mitachat hashemayim el makom echad. So God said, let the waters underneath the heavens be collected into one place. And therefore revealing and let there be visible hayabasha, like dry land. And this dry land, vayigra Elohim la yabasha eretz. God called the dry land eretz, land. He called it earth. And what I like about this, notice here, not only do we have Shamayim and Eretz, but we have them in the very order that verse 1 puts them in. By the way, since I'm not a biblical scholar, I meant to mention this at the beginning, plenty of people may have come up with this and maybe a more elegant version of this. I'm sure if that's the case, it's also been refuted, but this is just something I've stumbled upon on my own. And like I said, it wouldn't surprise me if other people haven't seen this. It would actually surprise me if people hadn't come across this. So again, I think that the one main reason to think about this first verse as being a heading is that it allows us then to see the creation happen here. And it's not a second creation then. It's not like heaven and earth were created and then they get created again because of the rakia and this separating waters into one place and dry land. And I hope that I haven't muddled that too much. But to me, it just makes much more sense that way. And that's why I have color-coded this haaretz green, because I don't think this is the haaretz that God created. So I do realize that for certain people, this will not, this verse here then would not make a lot of sense with the idea of God creating ex nihilo. To me, as I said, I'm just kind of looking at the text here. I'm not importing many other ideas, certainly no theological ideas. The ideas that I might import, or one might import, is to think how other civilizations have thought about the beginning of things. And even though I'm not saying that it's related, it's certainly not causally related, but if you read in the long discourses of the Buddha, in the Pali Canon, in the Agañña Sutta, the Buddha talks about how, now in this account, the universe just comes into being and kind of crashes and burns all on its own and then comes into being again, just like everything else. It's impermanent. And the Buddha mentions that when this happens, at first everything is watery and there's no sun or moon or stars visible, and that all happens later. Time comes into existence later, and it actually comes into existence after certain beings develop kind of a craving. And I'll put a link. I did a probably very, very boring episode in Daily Pali Reading on that, but I'll try to put a link in the description if you're interested in reading that particular text. And I also think the Egyptians had an idea of just watery, probably the Greeks as well, that water was there at the beginning and probably could symbolize a lot of things, a potential for life, but also kind of a chaos. Water's not shaped real well, especially if you're thinking about it in the ocean. So anyway, that's my argument. Dear listener, I would be very interested to hear what you have to say about that. I'm sure that does not sway anybody. So anyway, please let me know what you think about that. Now, I have one other little thing to say, and this isn't connected to the argument, but this is just connected to this word Breshit. It has not gone unnoticed by ancient rabbis or by other commentators, certainly modern commentators, that this is an awkward expression. It is typically we'll hear in English in the beginning, but there's no article here. And if this just had the article, I think we would expect Ba-re-shit. And there might even be a better way to say that in Hebrew. So some people think this is in the construct form. If you go to the Septuagint, it famously just leaves the article out. I say famously, en arche, not ente arche. And don't you love my Greek pronunciation as well? So I wonder, dear listener, why don't we just do that in English? Like if it's awkward, and so a question is coming here as well. If there's an awkward part in a text, is it the job of a translator to smooth it out, or is it the job to convey the fact that it's awkward? And I would say if we translated this, in beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, that might do it, right? Just like in the Septuagint, if we leave out that article, it makes it it sounds a little different in beginning. And it just, again, it calls our attention to the fact that it's not a really clear grammatical feature or construction. It's not a clear syntactic structure. Maybe to some people it is, but it seems like it's certainly been the source of some debate. So again, I would be interested to hear what you have to say about that. Should a text that's difficult to understand, should it be translated in a way that's difficult to understand, perhaps footnoted with the intention of offering some ideas as to how to clarify? So with that, dear listener, I bid you peace. May you have a wonderful day.